At this point, I'm going to ask the Chancellor to introduce our next guest, but I do want to say this. The issue of Compton College certainly is very, very important to all of us on this board, and certainly important to myself, having been in the Secretary's office during this transition time and working with then Senator Scott on this legislation. I think it's something that all of us on the board want to keep our eye on pretty carefully from here on out. And I want to give a special thanks to Vice President Perez, who has kept us at the forefront, and I have asked her to really help this board monitor the progress of Compton. So I thank her for her leadership on this. Chancellor.
Well, some of you were members of the Board of Governors when the whole decision to have a special trustee appointed at Compton College was taken up. But I'll just review a little of the facts. And the reason I know something about this is that I was, at that time, a senator, and I was involved in working with Assemblymember Dimely in terms of the bill that loaned money to Compton College. When Mark Drummond was the chancellor, he began to recognize there were serious problems at Compton College. Some of it involved the trustees. Unfortunately, one trustee had embezzled money to the point that that individual was sent to prison. And so he began to take steps to take over Compton College, and did so, making it subject to a special trustee. Subsequently, Compton College lost its accreditation. Now, to emphasize how serious this is, this would simply mean that when the accreditation was lost, that any student after that would not have accredited units. And of course, this would really be the death knell for Compton College. El Camino College stepped forward and said, we will allow Compton College to become a center, and therefore that the degrees and the units would now be granted in the name of El Camino College, El Camino College being a fully accredited institution. However, this was a little bit of a hybrid arrangement because El Camino College did not take over the responsibility of the faculty that was hired. Those faculty had tenure, and so there was a bill that was carried. A loan was made to Compton College because Compton College was bankrupt. A loan was made, and it was authored by Mervyn Dimely, who was the assemblyman from that area. I, in turn, jockeyed that bill, and if you don't know what the term jockey means, I'll explain it. When a bill is authored in one house and comes to the next house, the author is not permitted to stand up and present the bill. He or she asks someone of the opposite house to stand up and, as we say, become the jockey. So I was involved in this. I talked with Chancellor Drummond, and that was before I knew that I would be the chancellor of this system. The special trustee was Peter Landsberger. Several months ago, Peter Landsberger indicated that he no longer wanted to remain in that position. And after discussion, it was determined that an excellent possibility was Janetha Hudley Hayes. Janetha has a background in education. She was on the Los Angeles Unified School Board, and she is a person who has a lot of respect in her community. I am given the responsibility, by the way, of appointing the special trustee. So I know that Tom Fallow, the president of El Camino College, was very impressed with Janetha. And when I interviewed Janethia, I was very impressed as well. Here's someone that I thought had administrative skills, and this is not an easy position. There's a lot of intensity, I might say, always in a position like this where a college has lost its accreditation. It was the heart of a community, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas about this matter, and some of those ideas don't always agree, as is typical, but perhaps more intensely. And El Camino is in a very sensitive position of being someone who stepped in and took over a college and really saved the students there. Because without the El Camino accreditation, of course, the college would not have been accredited. From time to time, you all have had an interest. Some of you visited Compton College, the campus, and when we were holding our meeting at El Camino. I've asked Janetha Hudley Hayes to make a report today, and I think she is fully capable of overseeing what is not an easy task, and that is to oversee this sensitive role of special trustee. Now, as special trustee, whenever a college or a school district, and I was in the legislature, and there were several school districts, Vallejo and Oakland both went bankrupt. And when the state loans money, it loans money with strings attached. It says, in effect, the local board has not demonstrated their ability to oversee the financial stability of an institution, and therefore their powers, which normally they have the fiduciary responsibility, are taken away. And they are now in the hands of a special trustee. I think you can understand why the state does this. I remember one unified school district in which I was very irritated with the actions of the trustees. They had been warned that this particular school district was going to go bankrupt by the county superintendent, and yet the superintendent that they hired kept telling them everything was all right till finally they went bankrupt. So when we agreed in the committee to fund them, I made it very clear that I was not funding them because I had sympathy for the trustees. I was funding them on the basis of the children. And that's really what happened at Compton College. We, the state of California, funded Compton College because they were concerned about those students, and they were fearful if they just closed the college, there would literally be hundreds of students who wouldn't go to college at all. And so that's the, I'm not trying to go at great length, but I want you to understand what the background was. And my appreciation for Janethia for stepping up and saying, yes, I will take on this difficult task. So with that introduction, I'll ask her to step forward and make some comments, and perhaps there will be questions that will occur.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Janethia Hudley Hayes, and just by way of background, I'm a person that believes that you have to know a little bit about the messenger before somebody brings you a message. My undergraduate work is having a BA in English. I have a master's degree in education. I also hold an MBA, and I have a PhD in political science with a special emphasis on public policy. I was on the Los Angeles Unified School District's Board of Education for 4 years. For 2 years, I was the president. I have been a special monitor for the entire state of Pennsylvania. I've been a special monitor for the entire state of Illinois. I have been a special monitor for Selma, Alabama. I serve on the Los Angeles Fire Department as the president, with the fiduciary responsibility of running the fire department. And thanks to Chancellor Scott, I am now the special trustee for the Compton Community College District. Before I begin my update to you, I want to say to all of you that I am appreciative of the fact that Chancellor Scott has appointed me, and I'm appreciative of the fact that he is supportive and believes that I can, in fact, carry out this task. I had a good meeting with Chancellor Scott. He's very clear about what his expectations are, and I am up to the task and to the challenge of meeting those expectations. He's been very clear about the fact that the important thing for the Compton Community College District is for a accredited institution to be within the boundaries of the district. I believe that is possible. As all of you know, the accreditation process is what it is. In the early 80s, I served on the accreditation commission myself, not for junior colleges, but for four-year institutions. And the accreditation process is simply what it is. So to sit here and tell you that we're going to be able to shorten the time or we're going to be able to change the timeline is just not something that's going to happen. There's the eligibility steps, there's the candidacy steps, there's a study, there's sustainability, there's the fiduciary piece of it. All of that has to happen in the timeline and given the process that's in place here in California. Yesterday, you had an opportunity to hear from Danny Villanueva, who is the new Chief Business Officer for the district. He comes to the district from LACO, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, so he, of course, brings the kind of skill that we need in the district to be able to manage and to oversee that which got the district in trouble in the first place, and that's the financial piece of it and the fiduciary responsibility that's so incredibly important. I want to give a disclaimer this morning. I know Chancellor Scott in a different life. When I was on the board of the Los Angeles Unified School District, I was called to Sacramento to explain why I had bought the contract out of our superintendent. I am here today to answer questions and to explain to you why I have once again bought the contract out of the CEO of the Compton Community College District. I had never been to Sacramento. I had never been called before a committee before. And I was standing in the hallway, and I was really literally shaking in my boots. And Senator Scott passed by, and he said to me in that way that he has of saying to people, aren't you that person who's up here from the Los Angeles Unified School District, and don't you need to go in and answer questions? And I said, yes, I am. And he shook my hand. He put his hand on my shoulder, and he said to me, the only thing that you need to do is to remember why you're on the school board, to remember the children, and to be able to give rationale and reason for why you made the decision. And you're going to be fine. There are a lot of them in there, and they're going to make you sit at the front of the table, which is where I'm sitting now, and they're going to ask you a lot of questions. He said, but I'm confident that you will be able to acquit yourself well. I don't know about you sitting at this table, but I want to share with you, you have no idea how reassuring that is, and how wonderful it would be that someone would come along who didn't know you and would give you that kind of support and that kind of conversation. And I had to remind Chancellor Scott of that when we met, because I'm sure that in his career he's had to shore up and give a lot of people confidence. It was very important to me, though, so I wanted to make that disclaimer because, you know, people always wonder whether there's some nefarious thing going on underneath. But we hadn't spoken from that day to the day that I had the interview. What I have brought up for you is a packet, because I understand that you haven't been getting consistent reports about Compton. So I sent up on January the first installment of what I would like to let you know are going to be monthly status reports that will be coming up. And you have the provisional February update for where we are now. There will be another piece of information that will be coming to you shortly. the Faculty Senate met, and so there's another piece of information that I want to share with you about how the faculty is doing on their project of finding out how they're going to meet those 21 steps for eligibility for El Camino College to present them for eligibility for the accreditation process. So the February report actually isn't ready. What I've been doing with Chancellor Scott is I've been closing out January, waiting for 2 weeks and sending January up. I'm closing out February, but you'll get the full report, the finished report, in about a week. So we're about a week early for me to come up and speak with you. I'm not going to read over what's in the report, but if you actually look in your report, you'll notice that there are elements that you will always see, which have to do with key relationships and the partnerships that are necessary to move the district forward. I will also give you always key observations from my perspective. You'll have the goals for the coming month. And then you'll have, I am a person who believes in data. I'm data-driven. I'm a process person. I believe in data. So we'll be putting some financial data together for you, and we'll be putting some statistical data for you, and we'll be giving you student data information. And my understanding from President Himmelstein is that you would prefer to get these electronically. I spoke to him this morning. And I am perfectly happy to come at any time, in person, of course, to answer questions, because, of course, electronically you get it and you can't then have any pushback and we can't have dialogue. So I'm perfectly willing to come and speak with you about any issue that you see in the reports. The third report that you have, or actually the third form that you have, is so that you will understand how the decision was made to terminate the contract of the CEO, and that's this form. I did not bring with me or send with me, because of the confidentiality of personnel issues, the form filled out and completed for the CEO, but I wanted you to see the form so that you would, in case you were asked how that happened and how it happened so quickly. I sat with the CEO, we went over together what would be evaluated, what categories would be evaluated, and quite frankly, the only thing that I can tell you was that there were many issues and just too many areas where the CEO did not meet just the minimum basic requirements, in my opinion. So I have been there since the 1st of January. Actually, I've been there since the 9th of January, as I was out of the country in Egypt and Ethiopia and just got home before the eruption. But I've been there since the 9th of January, and there's good news and bad news. And I'm a pretty straightforward person, so I want you to know the good news is that I do believe that the college has made progress towards working to get itself ready to meet the 21 eligibility, the 21 criteria for eligibility. I think they have made good progress. The faculty has been working very hard. The bad news is, of course, one of the pieces, as Chancellor Scott explained to you, that is incumbent upon the district and that is written into law, AB 318, has to do with the governing board. And having us take a look at, a very serious look at, whether or not we believe that the board is ready to assume control of the district again. That's one of the things that has to happen before accreditation can happen. And at this point, I have to share with you that I have major concerns still with the elected Board of Trustees. And there's going to need to be a lot of board development so that those trustees understand what their roles are, what their responsibilities are, how to discharge those roles and responsibilities in a professional way. They need to have a lot more development around the issues of what their fiduciary responsibility is and understanding those things that govern fiduciary responsibility for a community college district. And so on that front, I would like to share with you that there has not been a lot of movement. there has not been a lot of recovery in terms of board development. And so one of the things that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to work and put together study groups. I'm going to have to work very hard to put together a series of study groups for them. One of the changes that we'll have, of course, is that we're going to have 2 board meetings a month instead of 1. One will be a business meeting and the other will be a study session. We're going to have to do that in public because of the Brown Act, as all of you understand. And that's going to be a tall order because they're elected. They're elected officials. And what we can do is we can develop them and we can develop them and we can work with them and we can do those kinds of things, but they are elected from their various communities to serve on a board that is disempowered to oversee a district that does not have an accredited institution. So you can understand that that's a very, very sensitive process and procedure that we're going to have to go through. The communities that include the Compton Community College District, Carson, Lenwood, Paramount, Willowbrook Enterprise, and the city of Compton, which really comprises 66% of the district, really and truly also misunderstand the process. Their goal and their interest is to have local control returned. That is what they want to have happen. The misunderstanding is that local control being returned is not going to change the amount of time that it will take for the district to have an accredited institution. The other misunderstanding is that there is the belief that we are re-accrediting an institution. And as all of you understand, when accreditation is revoked, the revocation means there is no institution to reconstitute. And so what has to happen is the Compton Center now must do the hard work that's necessary so that we create an institution that is ready for accreditation. And then the transactional piece of it is that El Camino would need to return that institution to the Compton Community College District. So it is a very difficult concept to get people to understand because, of course, the communities that are involved see the physical plant. There's no way that you can't pass by and see the physical plant. And so, of course, the perception is that, well, there is a college there because we see it. That is going to be a major piece of the work that I'm going to have to do as a special trustee because there needs to be a great deal of community outreach. There needs to be a great deal of community education. There needs to be the recreation of the Citizens Advisory Committee. There's a great deal of pushback about that in the community, and especially with the elected Board of Trustees. But those of you that are familiar with AB 318, in law, there has to be created a Citizens Advisory Committee for the special trustee. So I'm also going to have to put that in place, and I'm working on doing that. The other thing that we're doing is, and Danny is here with me and he can speak to this point for you more, I've put together an audit committee. It's going to be headed by Dr. Joseph Zeronian, who is the Dean of the Business School at USC, because I am still not confident about the financial operations at the center and in the district. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a performance audit done by an outside independent auditing firm, not the firm that the college uses for its end-of-the-year audits, but another firm, because I think, as all of you are well aware, it's the fiduciary portion of the district that must be in pristine shape. And so we have engaged a firm. We'll be putting an audit committee together. There will be transparency because we will be putting members on the audit committee from the various communities and constituencies that are served by the district, so that everyone will have an opportunity to watch the audit firm do its work, and everyone will have the information that they need once the audit is completed. That's going to take about 3 months, but we'll continue to send you up information about how that's going and what the findings are as we go along. We'll turn it over to Mr. Villanueva. Is there anything that you want to share with them? He has come into the business office, and the two of us together have determined that that audit is necessary.
Yes. Good morning. I've only been there 3 months, and it's pretty exciting. But there's a lot of challenges that the business office has in the budget that we have to get our arms around, and it's critical that we get this independent audit agency to highlight what we're not doing and point it out and make that extremely transparent so the community and the board understands that we still have a lot of work to do. We still have a great amount of work to do. The current year budget, I lose a lot of sleep over it because it is worrisome to me at the moment. That I know how much cash I have, but the budget, when it was adopted, was flawed. When it was presented to the Board of Education and adopted, was flawed from the date it was adopted, and that's inappropriate.
I'm sorry, Mr. Villa, the budget was what?
Was flawed.
Flawed. I'm sorry.
Flawed.
Okay.
And it shouldn't have been done. It should not. It's misleading and inappropriate, which now is a challenge to us to get our arms around it, because the community, staff, and the board are under assumptions that won't be realized. So having this performance audit, making the process transparent, is critical to moving forward and getting this institution accredited and getting good business practices in place.
Could you give me an example or two of where the budget is flawed?
From the budget presentation, if you look at the events that happened between September and October, between the budget being presented to the board for discussion and then the adoption, it went up $2 million. Regarding the 50% law, we know what that number is, but the staffing plan doesn't match it. Those in the position to speak to the 50% law, to be sure that that's going to be accomplished and realized, were never consulted. So while on paper it does meet the requirement, the implementation plan was never there behind it. Also, you know, several expenditures in maintenance and operation. The budget was exhausted by the day I walked in, on December 6th, my first day there. The budget was already running a negative, and nobody really could speak to why.
At this point, what we'd like to do is we'd like to pause in our presentation and see if you have any other specific questions. I think we've tried to, with as much specificity as possible. There's more specificity in the reports, but we certainly would like to entertain any questions that you might have of the two of us, and then we'll give some closing remarks.
Okay. Board members in a second. Mr. Villanueva, could you just, for a minute, tell us your background?
Oh. Prior to going to Compton Community College, I spent 11 years at the LA County Office of Education in the Division of Business Advisory Services. My main area of responsibility was oversight, if you're familiar with K-12, of AB 1200. The fiscal solvency budget reviews of all 80 school districts in LA County to ensure that they had enough money. I also oversaw the finance program in conjunction with the LA County Treasurer's Office for certificates of participation, COP, the tax and revenue notes, the trans, for cash flow issues. I served as secretary to the County Committee on School District Organization. I oversaw the elections in conjunction with the Register Recorder's Office and other services such as unemployment, a facilities program. I have a bachelor's degree in economics, an MBA, and a master's in information systems also. Prior to going to the County Office of Education, I was the director of business and operations for a private nonprofit in Southern California that worked with special needs kids.
Thank you. Board members, questions?
I have some comments.
Member Burrells.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say thank you for these reports. They really give us a lot of information to look at and to see what the process is and what's been going on and updating us. But in terms of the board needing to understand their roles and responsibilities, I don't know if you're familiar with ACCT, the Association of Community College Trustees. I know we've had them down at State Center. They have Narcissa Polonio does an excellent job in bringing boards together and going through, walking them through all that process. And I don't know if this is something that would obviously help the board do, and I don't know what you're planning on to do with in terms of how to addressing that. So I just wanted to make that suggestion out to you.
Thank you. We're aware of that. I want to be as honest as I can. They've been through that.
Okay.
They're elected officials. I don't know how to say that to you. And I'm planning on doing something that's a bit more drastic and a bit more direct. They've been through that now twice. We have one member on the Board of Trustees who harkens back to what Chancellor Scott was speaking about when the college imploded. And it's very difficult. It takes a certain amount of tenacity on the part of a special trustee to be able to work with a board of trustees who have been elected. Can I say that any more straightforward to you than I'm saying it to you? So my plan is to have the study sessions with them. My plan is to bring in speakers, and we'll try once again. But I'm sure, I don't know whether all of you are aware of it, but they were up here again for the conference for new members of boards of trustees.
The legislative conference.
And yet and still, they're elected officials.
Thank you.
Member Malumed and then Member Davis-Lyman.
Well, thank you very much for coming forward. I really appreciate it, and it's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And you say things very clearly, so I love the way you present things. I just had a few questions. Mr. Zeronian?
Yes.
Can you tell me again what you're having him do there?
Dr. Zeronian will be heading the audit committee, and it is a performance audit more than the kind of audit that we would have as we were doing an outside independent audit for closing our books. Mr. Villanueva and I both are very concerned about the systems that are in place, about the financial checks and balances that are in place with the district. And so Dr. Zeronian, using the auditing firm of Gil Vasquez, will be coming in and looking at the systems that are in place. It's a performance audit more than an audit that one would anticipate for ending balances. One of the things that alerted me and that alarmed me, quite frankly, was on the 14th of December, I was invited to come and sit in when Dr. Landsberger was still the special trustee, to come in and sit in on the audit meeting, and I discovered that our end-of-the-year audit had not been completed not because the firm that we'd hired to do the audit was not competent, but because the district kept giving them data that changed. Day to day, system to system, balance sheets that didn't match other balance sheets. We are still without an end-of-the-year audit, and it is now February. So my belief, because I am data-driven and process-driven, is that we have to get a look at and get our hands on just exactly what is awry in the business office. There isn't any other way to do it, and there's no other way for me to put it to you. Mr. Villanueva has identified gaps and lacks, but when you're being transparent, it's important that you do it and you use a process that is going to have transparency. And so we're putting this in place. The Vasquez company believes it's going to take about 3 months. And then we'll be able to go back in and figure out who needs to be hired, who needs to be retrained, the kinds of things that you have to put in place in order for Mr. Villanueva to have a functioning business office.
And just 2 more questions. Is former Congressman Merv Dimely involved at all?
I met with Senator Dimely last week to speak with him about it. He hasn't really been involved in any way other than tangentially with the district, but I met with Senator Dimely because as the author of AB 318 and also AB 61, I wanted to know what the intent was, what was on his mind, what was in his mind, and like my time with Chancellor Scott, it was very informative and it was very helpful for me to be able to understand that. But in answer to your question, really, Senator Dimely has only been engaged in a very tangential way with the district. But we're re-engaging with him, or at least I'm re-engaging with him.
And you mentioned that it was a loan all those years back. Is it a loan that has to be repaid?
Yes.
That was made to the district?
Yes, it's a
Been
$30 million.
It's being repaid every year.
Okay.
Yes.
$1.3 million is being repaid. $700,000 of that is in debt service. And the college has drawn down $17 million of that. No, I'm sorry. They've drawn down $13 million of the $30 million. But there are very specific, thanks to Senator Dimely and Chancellor Scott, there's only very specific instances that the money can be drawn down and used for. And that was to make sure that the same debacle didn't occur that occurred initially. And so President Fallow over at El Camino College, and now I will be being very careful and very conservative, given the physical condition that the state is in, about drawing down on that money. And it does have to be repaid, yes.
Thank you.
You're
Those are my
welcome.
questions. Thank you.
Member Davis-Lyman, and then Member Baca, then Member Baum.
Thank you so much for your candidness. This board cares deeply about Compton College. And when we visited there in November, I believe, along with the fiscal responsibilities, on the horizon is huge, is the accrediting process. And I'm wondering, when we spoke to some faculty and staff and administrators on the campus in November, there were some concerns that time constraints, smaller faculty, that there was just a lot to do, as well as maintaining the kind of programs and progress that we know our students need on that campus. So could you address the accreditation process and not the process itself, but where you are and your comfortability with that? What's
Certainly.
going on now?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I think, as you all know, in January of 2010, the CEO, who was initially the CEO and the provost, that job was split because there was the feeling that while the individual who was the CEO provost was doing a credible job as CEO, there was some concern about his ability to provide the academic leadership. And so now at the college, there is a vice president for academic affairs, Barbara Perez, who has come over from El Camino Community College, and she is now in charge of student services and all of the academic and faculty affairs at the center. We are now in the process of, in fact, restructuring the faculty, and in fact, collapsing some of the departments and changing some of the responsibilities. From my perspective, just as a person who's an educator, there was a lot of disconnect and there was a lot of stovepiping, if you understand what I mean by that. There was no integration of a management team, a senior management team on the academic side that came together on a regular basis to really talk about accreditation and where they were. So one of the things that I put in place was, after the last Flex Day, I had faculty meet together in unlike group settings. So across the board, what you do is you integrate the departments, the department heads, and you also bring together non-faculty who then become a part of those conversations. And so we had on the campus 8 meetings right after the convocation in the morning. And that's the report that you're going to get in about 2 weeks, as soon as I've had an opportunity to look at those numbers and to see what they're doing. So they're operating differently now, so that we really can get a handle on where they believe that they're proficient in terms of the 21 eligibility criteria, where they believe they are not proficient, and I've asked them to put together work plans, do the backwards design that's necessary in order for them to do the work that they need to do to get themselves proficient in the 21 areas. I think that it's going very well. There is a absolute will at that center to get themselves accredited. They are willing to do the work. They want to do the work. What they needed was they needed guidance to understand how to get at that work. And the only way that you can get at that work, in my opinion, is if you have integrated work groups, so that you are talking across the curriculum. You're talking across the course offerings. You're looking at those 21 steps, and you're making sure that everyone is plugged in, that everyone's work plan, that everyone's design pulls itself together, so that ultimately what you have is you have that educational programming that has to happen. There has to be an educational master plan. When I arrived, there was none. We had a facilities master plan, but we didn't have an educational master plan. So as Mr. Villanueva was talking about around the fiscal stuff, you can't have a facilities master plan if you don't have an educational master plan, because how can you put buildings up and how can you have that kind of a plan if people are not clear about the educational piece of it? Mm-hmm. And so while I wasn't comfortable, if I had come to you in January, I would have told you that I wasn't comfortable. But I think that the process that I have put in place and initiated, I am comfortable with that. I will be appointing a new interim CEO, and I'll be able to step back from that role. As all of you are aware, that's really not the normal role of the special trustee. But I believe that in my case, because of my background, that I had the capacity to step in and to do that because it wasn't being done.
I just have a follow-up question.
Sure.
Could you tell us what is the kind of support that El Camino College is giving Compton in this area of accreditation?
Well, as you know, Barbara Perez actually is on faculty at El Camino, and she is at now the center full-time. So we have one full-time person that's there. El Camino and President Fallow have put together something that's called the Senior Management Committee, where 7 of his vice presidents and deans regularly come and meet with the deans at the center. So they're providing the kind of support that is coaching and mentoring and working together with these faculty at the center to come over to El Camino to begin to understand how things are done at El Camino, not necessarily to replicate El Camino, but to really understand how one works at creating an educational master plan, how one creates sustainability. The other support is that we also have the person who is our IT specialist at the center, Rudy Ramos, who is also coming from El Camino to the center. He's there now full-time. And there is something that's called the accreditation team that consists of, well, it will consist of the new CEO, but right now it consists of me, President Fallow, Vice President Perez, and Dr. Arce, Francisco Arce from El Camino. And what we do is we meet monthly so that we then can provide the support and get updates and kind of focus and move that piece of the work together. So El Camino actually is doing a great deal to support, and they are a good partner to Compton, and there is no pushback. That is not the issue. There is no pushback from either faculty on either side. Danny is getting great help from Joanne Higdon, who is the CBO over at El Camino. They're working strongly together now in a partnership so that they're beginning to put the business side of it together. And so that's why I'm saying to you that I'm very hopeful that the process will continue, that it will be strong, but that's the support that El Camino gives the center. The pushback, and I wish I had been in place to come and speak to you about that, the pushback is really from the community that doesn't actually understand any of this. All they want is their college back. And I can understand that. I have to share with you that I can understand that. But it is the intricacies of what needs to be done, because Chancellor Scott is correct. This is a brand new thing. Never in the history of the community college system in the state of California has an institution had their accreditation revoked. So the hybrid nature of it means, and I want to be very clear with all of you, means that we are actually in some ways making it up as we go along, because it's a brand new situation and a brand new circumstance. But El Camino, I believe, is an excellent partner, very sensitive to the needs of. They just had an accreditation team come in for the nursing program, which now you know Compton Center's nursing program and El Camino's are now the same, and they were reaccredited. There were 2 recommendations, only 2 recommendations, but they have been reaccredited. The program has been reaccredited, and that is, I believe, a testament to how 2 faculties can work together to bring about the things that need to happen.
Thank you for your commitment with follow-up reports monthly to us. Thank you so much.
Get them every month from now on.
Member Baca.
More than you want.
Member Baca and Member Baum.
Dr. Hadley Hayes, thank you. You're covering quite a bit of ground here. Now, as I gather in your brief time there, you've assessed that the 2 primary things that got Compton into trouble haven't changed very much, and some of the other things involving the master planning are works in progress, and I guess they weren't making too much progress there either. Are there some things that you could identify that have been positive since this all began, or has occurred over the last couple of years, or you found as you came into this responsibility?
Well, one of the most positive things that I did find, and I will share that with you, was the faculty. The fact of the matter is the faculty itself at the center and the faculty at El Camino have been working. So the quality of instruction and the course offerings really and truly are quite good. And I believe that that's a testament to what's happening with the faculty senates on both sides. I will share with you that I do not believe that there has been much progress around the fiscal issues. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that pill at all for you. I believe that there was a possibility for the same things that happened initially to happen again. And I was quite concerned about that. I think we're on the right road with Mr. Villanueva, with the skill that he brings and with the fact that now we've got two sets of eyes paying attention to it. I think the other positive thing was that, and I'd love to come to your next meeting and give you that PowerPoint presentation. We created something that's called Brick by Brick, which is a total rollout of what accreditation looks like and where the college is right now with the statistics. And I've been taking that out, if you will, kind of a road show, out to all of our various and sundry communities. But it's a very comprehensive document that was put together so that people will begin to understand it. And I think that that was an excellent thing to happen. And it certainly happened before I got there. Dr. Landsberger wanted to put that together so that people would begin to understand it. And actually, it has a lot of really good information in terms of the progress. The issue that's concerning me is the financial management and the governance piece. And I believe that the financial piece, I'm absolutely comfortable now that we have the right person in place with the right skill set. The governance piece, which is on me, I believe is going to be more difficult. And there's nothing else for me to tell you that would lessen that perception on my part.
Member Baum.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for taking on this assignment. You're known as somebody who's a straight talker and is willing to make tough decisions, and so I think we're fortunate. I want to get back to the fiscal thing about it, too. First off, when you said that the audit hasn't been completed, doesn't that impact El Camino, the district's ability to submit an audit, and was the district able to submit an audit for the previous year?
Well, El Camino's audit, and I'll let Mr. Villanueva speak to you about, I'm so used to calling him Danny, that I'm trying to be very formal this morning. And he's so used to calling me Janethia, so we're trying to. El Camino's, because it is El Camino College District, their audit is completed and it's done, and they're totally separate from the Compton Community College District. So the impact to El Camino, there is no impact for El Camino.
The district was able to submit an unqualified audit, even though they have fiscal responsibility for the Compton Center.
No. The El Camino College District has responsibility for only the academic side of the house.
Okay, that helps. Okay, I understand.
Compton Community College District is the fiduciary agency.
When was the last time the Compton District was able to provide an unqualified audit?
Wow, I probably would have to ask
have
Fred.
to go back.
Okay,
I
so it's
don't know.
Not within the last several years.
It's been many moons.
Right, okay, so then, so you brought on the Vasquez Company. Are they experiencing community college audit?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, they are.
That's good. Then the other, you mentioned Dr. Zerone. I work at USC. I hadn't heard of him. I just don't know. He's not the business school dean at USC. I just want to make sure.
Dr. Zeronian is, I think, now just faculty. I think he's getting ready to retire from USC.
Maybe he's a merit, because he's not listed on the faculty in the business school. But anyway, it'd be great to get some background. Is he being compensated as a member of this committee?
He is.
Okay,
We're compensating him.
So this is not a volunteer position?
Oh, no.
You're bringing on, if you could follow up and just send me.
I'll send you information. Dr. Zeronian was also the CFO for the Los Angeles Unified School District when I was the president. And he came in largely to the same kind of confusion at LAUSD that we're asking him to come and take a look at now. I'm sorry?
You've worked with him in the past?
I've worked with Dr. Zeronian in the past, yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And then what's the search process for the CEO?
It's called AR 2031, and it is the agreement between El Camino, Compton Community College District, and it's also the search process that the Community College District uses. So there will...
Will you be going out and
I can send it to
recruiting a
you.
national or a local or bringing in a
Well,
firm or
we're
something?
going to do a national search because that's what it's going to call for. And I've talked with Chancellor Scott. I know that there are many community colleges in the state who are also looking for presidents. But I am confident that I will appoint an interim CEO that will be able to keep us moving forward, and I'm confident that once we use that process, that we will find someone. I think the scrutiny will be different this time. The level of scrutiny will be different this time. The committee that will be put together will probably be very different this time. And I'm confident that we'll find someone who'll be able to do what needs to be done. But it's going to be difficult because I believe there are 17 vacancies within the California Community College
That's what I was
system
saying.
in California.
Thank you for what you've done the last 60 days, but thank you more for what will be going on in the months and years
You're
ahead.
welcome.
And I look forward to...
And I guess as people have said, I'm a pretty straight shooter. And I really have to say to you that one of the reasons that I took this task on is because I don't believe that failure is an option in that part of Los Angeles County. I believe that the only way for people to come up from under the negative impact of poverty, the only way for us to keep folk out of gangs and off of drugs and off of the prison trail is to provide them with quality educational opportunities. And so for me, there is no option, in the work that I'm doing. We have to get it accredited, but it has to be, if you will, my standard, because I think that's why you have a special trustee. So it's got to be done.
Thank you very much.
Member Thomas?
Thank you. Just briefly, I think this board does not believe failure is an option either. And as Member Davis-Lyman indicated, we have been very committed and concerned about Compton. I just wanted to add my voice. Thank you for your straightforward, candid report to us, letting us know the good and the not so good. And we look forward to hearing your monthly reports to keep us informed, and I'm sure you will let us know if there's something we can do to assist you and Compton as they move forward.
Okay. I want to make two other little disclosures. I did have conversation with your Board of Governors, Bobby McDonald, who I know is a huge supporter, who still has family who lives in Compton. Fred Harris has been invaluable in terms of helping. I don't have any qualms about the fact that this board is supportive. I don't have any concerns that if I come to you and if I need help, that you'll provide me with that help. Fred has taken me through the steps of getting me up to speed on the community college system. He is always a phone call away. He responds to me just immediately. Mr. McDonald has said that he will be that same person for me down in the Southern California area. He has reached out to me. I reached out to him. He reached out to me immediately and said if there's anything that he can do, if there's any help that I need, he'll be doing that. The other thing that I want to share with you is that on April the 8th, for the first time ever, we're doing a State of the District event. Chancellor Scott has agreed to come down and to be a part of that. He's a pretty straight shooter himself, in the event that you all hadn't figured that out yet. He'll be coming down. We'll be having and inviting in about 300 people onto the campus, and we will simply be giving them a straightforward message about where we are, where we have to go, what that timeline looks like.
Okay, I'm going to allow two final comments, Vice President Perez, and then wrap it up with the Chancellor.
I just wanted to say, which so many of my peers have said, it's extremely refreshing to hear your comments today. Particularly, I appreciate your comprehensive approach, that you're looking at the fiscal responsibility, you're looking at the governance piece of it, you're looking at faculty. And very important is that you're also looking at the community piece of it, because the community has a lot of pride and ownership in that institution, and they really want it back within their community. I really appreciate the fact that you are digging in before you start, moving forward, and as you need to, you're making the changes to go forward. I'd say, for myself, and I think my fellow board members would echo it, it just brings us so much confidence because for so long we've been very concerned, but the information we've been receiving has been extremely limited. And so, again, whatever we can do to support you, we're here to support you. I'm really looking forward to continuing to hear more about the progress that's being made. I truly appreciate your candidness about, what's going good and what's not so good. Because I think for us all to be on the same page and have a reality check and to provide the support that you need, we need to understand that. And the outreach to the community is important, too, because I don't think they've been getting the level of information that they need to truly understand what the process is that needs to take place, in order for them to get to that point in time. So I look forward to your continued dialogue with us. And as it's been said, for us, failure is not an option either. That community needs that school. The people that live there need this opportunity. We don't want our growing youth to go into the wrong direction and create workforce development for a prison system. We want them to contribute to the economy in which we all are a part of. So thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
Chancellor.
Just my final comment to you is that this work is very important to me. Just on a personal note, I'm a fourth-generation college graduate, and so I understand the importance of education. My great-grandfather started his life as a slave, and he became a Hebrew and Latin scholar, and he was the first black person to graduate from the University of Chicago. So everything is possible through education. So I'm reaching out to the community strongly. I want to say to you that I believe that there's been a lot of emphasis placed on Compton, and we're changing that because there is Carson, there is Linwood, there's Paramount that needs to be included in the dialogue. The diversity in that part of the county is changing rapidly, so we have to reach out beyond what we perceive to be those people that are interested and concerned from the 1960s. I'm sure all of you are aware of it, but if you're not, we're sending up the pie chart when we send all of the stuff up in February. So I want to be very honest with you and candid with you about that. It is unsettling, and I am unsettling people. But the bottom line is we have now got a mix of African Americans, Latinos, Asian Pacific Islanders, all needing to be brought into the conversation. And that is unsettling sometimes for people when there's a demographic shift. I'm bilingual, which also is creating a bit of a
I love it.
but I'm a progressive, and I really eschew labels, but I'm inclusive. And so they're gonna, you're gonna hear some rumblings. I want you to be aware of that. But the rumblings, I think, are gonna be good rumblings, where we are actually casting the net wider, where we're actually gonna be giving out more information, where we're actually gonna be trying to attract a very diverse student population, because that's what's required. And so in the final analysis, I'll make sure that Fred has all my numbers and you can call me. So if you hear that kind of thing, what I believe is you can't have social justice, you can't have the kinds of things that need to happen if you're not willing to, ruffle the waters a bit so that you can have smooth sailing down the line. So I want you to give me the opportunity to do that, to know that I'm available and I'm accessible, and Bobby has agreed that he'll stick with me. And Chancellor Scott has agreed that he will stick with me, and I've agreed that I'm going to stick with you all. And I'm there to get it done. I'm there for the long haul, and we are going to get it done. And Danny has agreed that he's going to stick with me. He's an East LA guy, from that area, and it just has to get, it has to get done. And it's, democracy's messy.
Final comment to the Chancellor.
Well, I think all of you can see how very appealing Genethia was to me because of her candor, because of the fact that she has the experience to do this job. And I don't think we can minimize the difficulty of this job. There are people in the community that feel that the whole process was unfair, that Compton shouldn't have been unaccredited, that the college was unnecessarily taken away, and so there's resentment. And something that a lot of people don't understand is that accreditation is not in our hands, it's not in El Camino's hands, it's in the hands of the Accrediting Commission. And so if we were to think today that Compton College was ready to be accredited, our thoughts would be of no value. I mean, we could snap our fingers, and that's all we'd get is to hear the snap of our fingers. Because the Accrediting Commission has to make that decision, and I think all of us want to see that happen. I think what Janethia just said really highlights, and I'm going to kind of point this out, and I think it's obvious to most people. This is not only a difficult situation, it is in many ways a microcosm of the difficulties of all the demographic shifts that are going on in California. When you stop and think about it, we know first that Compton went through a demographic shift in which it became predominantly African American. Now it's going through another demographic shift in which actually the percentage is Latino. And yet probably the political power in Compton is still in the hands of the African Americans. Now let's put in the mix the fact that El Camino, extremely well-intentioned, and really the only community college that stepped up to the plate, because there were others that were asked, is an institution which is predominantly white. Now, I'm just going to say that very bluntly, that makes for an interesting mix. And it makes for a mix that we're not going to shy away from, but it makes it all the more difficult. So sometime we might want to examine you psychologically and ask, why would you do something like this? But people have asked me the same question about why I would come into the community colleges when we're being cut. So sometimes people step forward and say, I'm needed and I'm the one who can do the job. And I think that's what you've done, and I thank you for that, and thank you, Danny, also for your work. We are supportive. As I said, when I was called and asked to come down to a district-wide meeting, I said, fine, I'll be there. But of course, I'm going to fly in and fly out. And Janethia Hudley-Hayes is going to be there all the time, and that's really to be commended. So thank you for taking the time to come down here this morning. As you can tell, this Board of Governors is very supportive, and we'll do everything that we can to support you in what you do.
Thank you very much. And we would be happy to come back with the PowerPoint presentation at any time that you would like to have that. And we'll work with Fred to get all of your email addresses or however you want that transmitted electronically, and we'll keep sending the reports up every month.
Yeah, no, thank you both. We look forward to your regular reports. I think all the members would. I spoke on behalf of everybody, but certainly by email, I think is great to get the regular reports, and we look forward to further presentations by you and Mr. Villanueva. Thanks much.
Can I ask you one question? Yeah. When we do the monthly reports and send them up, do you then want me to put them into a larger quarterly, so that in addition to you getting monthly reports, I know that you would you like a quarterly summary, like an executive summary? Because I know that your plates are full, and I know when I was on the board, you sometimes can't read through all of that stuff. So would you prefer
monthly
summaries and then
I'll defer to the
quarterly?
Vice President here.
We don't want to make any additional work for you, first of all. You have enough going on your plate right now.
Okay.
I think if the board members and myself would just commit to reading your monthly reports. I
Okay.
think if, on a quarterly, if there's something that you think you need to highlight that hasn't been highlighted in the monthly reports, I think that would be very appropriate. But we want you to use your time where it's well spent.
Okay,
And it's the work that you're doing.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a 10-minute break.